The political landscape of Texas, and indeed the National Republican Party, was dramatically reshaped on March 3, 2026, as U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw, a prominent incumbent, was unseated in the Republican primary. This wasn't a narrow victory, it was a decisive defeat at the hands of State Representative Steve Toth, a challenger from the party's hard right. The outcome reverberated immediately, signaling a potent shift within the conservative movement and raising critical questions about the future of established Republican figures. Crenshaw, a former Navy SEAL with a national profile, had become a lightning rod for criticism from elements within his own party, often accused of not being conservative enough by the most vocal right-wing factions. His loss is more than just an election result. It's a stark indicator of the ongoing ideological battle for the soul of the GOP, where loyalty to a specific brand of conservatism is increasingly being tested at the ballot box. The stakes were incredibly high for both men. For Crenshaw, the continuation of a rising political career, and for Toth, the validation of a movement seeking to push the party further to the right. This primary was a direct referendum on the direction of the Republican Party, and the voters of Texas's 2nd Congressional District have delivered a clear, undeniable message. Dan Crenshaw first rose to national prominence as a decorated Navy SEAL, serving with distinction in Afghanistan where he lost an eye to an improvised explosive device. His entry into Congress in 2019 saw him quickly become a recognizable face, often appearing on national media and cultivating a reputation as a conservative voice with a pragmatic edge. However, this very pragmatism, coupled with his willingness to occasionally challenge the more extreme elements of his party, began to create fissures. He had at times criticized certain Republican politicians as grifters and performance artists, comments that did not endear him to the party's hardline base. Enter Steve Toth, a state representative from Conroe, Texas, known for his unwavering conservative principles and his alignment with the rightmost faction of the Texas legislature. Toth, an ordained pastor and small business owner, presented himself as the authentic conservative alternative, framing the race as a battle for the true direction of the Republican Party. The stage was set for a clash not just of personalities, but of competing visions for conservatism, intensified by a newly redrawn district that made Crenshaw more vulnerable to a challenge from his right. The primary campaign quickly intensified, highlighting the deep ideological divides within the Republican Party. Toth's strategy centered on painting Crenshaw as insufficiently conservative, pointing to instances where Crenshaw acknowledged the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election results and his support for aid to Ukraine. These positions, while mainstream for many, were anathema to a significant portion of the conservative base that Toth actively courted. A critical factor in Toth's favor was the absence of an endorsement from former President Donald Trump for Crenshaw. While Trump had endorsed Toth in previous state house races, his silence in this congressional primary was a glaring omission for the incumbent. Adding further weight to Toth's campaign was a late but highly influential endorsement from Senator Ted Cruz, a move that provided a significant boost to the challenger's credibility among conservative voters. Crenshaw, for his part, defended his conservative record, emphasizing his legislative efforts on border security and combating what he termed radical transgender ideology. Yet the narrative of a conservative incumbent straying from the party's core tenets, fueled by Toth's campaign and key endorsements, proved a powerful force in the district. As the polls closed on March 3, 2026, the focus quickly turned to Texas's 2nd Congressional District, encompassing parts of Harris and Montgomery counties. Early returns began to tell a story of an incumbent in serious trouble. Steve Toth rapidly opened a significant lead, a stark contrast to Crenshaw's previous primary performances where he had consistently secured double-digit victories. The Associated Press and other major news outlets soon projected Toth as the winner, confirming the upset. Toth's victory was not merely symbolic, it was a clear demonstration of the power of the party's right flank to unseat even well-established figures. The results underscored the effectiveness of Toth's campaign, which successfully leveraged conservative discontent and capitalized on the lack of a crucial endorsement for Crenshaw. The margin of victory, while not immediately detailed in all reports, was substantial enough for Toth to declare victory hours before official calls, stating that voters wanted a representative who would stand firm in his convictions. This outcome, in a heavily Republican district, means Toth is now all but guaranteed to represent the district in the U.S. House, marking a definitive end to Crenshaw's congressional tenure. Steve Toth's victory over Dan Crenshaw is more than just a local election result. It's a significant bellwether for the broader Republican Party. This outcome signals a continued and perhaps accelerating shift towards a more hardline, ideologically pure conservatism, particularly in deep red districts. It demonstrates the potent influence of figures like Senator Ted Cruz and the lingering impact of former President Trump's endorsements, or lack thereof, even when he is not directly on the ballot. For Crenshaw, this defeat marks a pivotal moment, forcing a re-evaluation of his political future and the viability of a more moderate conservative stance within a party increasingly defined by its right wing. For the Republican Party, Toth's win could embolden other challengers to target incumbents perceived as not conservative enough, potentially leading to more intra-party battles and a further narrowing of the party's ideological spectrum. The message from Texas's 2nd Congressional District is clear. The conservative base is actively engaged and willing to challenge established power structures to enforce its vision. As the 2026 election cycle progresses, this primary will be analyzed closely for its implications on other races and the overall direction of the GOP. What other incumbents might face similar challenges, and how will the party adapt to this evolving landscape? The answers will shape the political future for years to come.